This is the Last Minute Blues Podcast with Donnie, Alex, Jeremy, and Jeff Burton.
Well, welcome to another edition of the Last Minute Blues Podcast, which is brought to you by Blue Note Roofing. Roofing, siding, and gutters are St. Louis roofing experts. Visit BlueNoteRoofingSTL.com for a free inspection. Another episode of the Last Minute Blues Podcast and another fantastic guest. Blues broadcaster, former NHLer, St. Louisan, CBC graduate, Mr. Joey Vitale. What's going on, Joey? Good to see you, man.
Joey. I missed that on the
We do too, man.
We're going to have it coming back. So I'm great. I thank you for the intro, Donnie. It's great to be here. Love what you guys are doing. I spoke a little bit off the air, but you guys have got such a great show. And with the season picking back up, I'm loving to be here and talk some hockey.
Joey's one of those few guys that when he walks into the room, you get a smile on your face.
Oh, 100%.
It's just one of those guys, and I don't know what it is. It's the good looks. It's the CBC vibes. Maybe it's all of them.
You guys are so nice. This is great. I think that it's the kids. I think we have so many children. I just, Alex, these young kids. I'm so infatuated by children, and I love the kids, and I'm just around them all the time. And I think I just bring that childlike spirit, for better, mostly for worse, into the real world. And some people are like, that's a lot right there. But I don't know. I have a giddy way about myself, and I try not to take life too seriously.
How big is your crew, Joey?
We are at 7 with humans. We have 2 dogs.
Yeah, humans is the key word there.
Yeah, 2 dogs. We did have 29 chickens. We lost some to red-tailed hawks this summer. And then also we had to downsize the chicken family a little bit. I was starting to step in too much chicken poop and foot into poop into a feather. And I had to come to Jesus moment with my wife a couple of weeks ago. I said, honey, I think we got too many chickens. and she kind of shrugged her shoulders and said, I think you're right. So we downsized a little bit, found a nice little cute home, on the farm.
Downsized chicken. Do you go to your neighbor and be like, hey, you need 2 chickens?
Well, that's the problem. When you order chicken, do you ever order a chicken?
Never have.
Okay. So when you order chickens, you say, hey, I want 3 silkies, or I want 3 bedrock, whatever. Now, the chicken farmer from Cuckoo in Oklahoma, or Cuddy Cluck Cluck, some town in Oklahoma, which sounds like a chicken farm, he said, oh, okay, and you order 3, we're going to send you 3. So then you go to the post office and you pick them up, and they're beep, 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 beep. You open the box, there's like 7 chickens in there. You're like, oh my God, I didn't order 7 chickens, I ordered 3. So I called the farmer, I think it was Farmer Bill, and I said, Bill, he goes, yeah, you get your chickens? I go, yeah, but I got 7 of them. He goes, yeah, that's what we do. We send 7 because sometimes they die on the way. I was like, my goodness. Well, none died. He goes, well, you give them away. I'm like, give them away? Who do I give a chicken to? I tried asking some friends. No one takes a chicken. It's a chicken.
I mean, it's a pretty specific ask when you're asking somebody, right?
It's not like a deck of cards. Like, hey, you want an extra deck of cards? Or Amazon sent me an extra set of postcards. You want some postcards?
When you asked her, they think you were like offering like a chicken breast. Like, oh yeah, we need something for dinner the next 3 nights.
Right.
It's like, no, this is a live chicken.
We're talking about a live chicken here. So we did that a few times, and then it's chicken math from what my wife told me. And yeah, that's where we're at. So we had 27, lost to a couple. I got rid of 17 more. Found them an awesome farm out in the country where they can run and be free and be chickens, And so we're still stuck with 12. And the funny thing is we've got them for 6 months and they haven't laid 1 egg yet. So we're still waiting on that. We got a couple extra roosters, which weren't prepared for. So it's been a great summer.
I've ordered a learning process.
It's been a great summer.
I've ordered plenty of chickens, but I pick them up at Hodak's, not the post.
Yeah. That's right.
Hold on, you have roosters too?
Yeah, we got a couple roosters.
Can you have roosters in Kirkwood?
You're not supposed to, no.
Well, you just let people know that you have.
So people are going to know. Yeah, when it's hard to sex a chicken. You ever try sexing a chicken?
Not done anything,
Jeremy?
you've asked.
Okay. Well, when you sex a chicken, they below the belly, and it's really hard to do. So they think they're hens, but we have a few roosters. We've tried the collars. You put like a choke collar around them. That's not really working. So it's an ongoing process.
So Donnie, really,
boys, I have no idea where to transition out of this.
Well, really, what I always like to tell Joey is if I ever have downtime with my kids and I need something to do, I go to Kirkwood Farms, better known as the Vitale household.
Yeah,
see, that's incredible. Yeah. But also too, now that we've had this conversation, all I can think about is, damn, I bet you fresh fried chicken and fresh eggs is where it's at. Yeah. So it's kind of veered a couple of different places in my head since we've been talking about it.
Yeah, it's really fun.
It usually does when he's in the chair.
Well, the best part is I'm the only one in my family that actually likes eggs, so that'll be the whole nother thing when we eventually have 36 coming per day.
When they happen.
Yeah, so we'll be able to give them away though. It'll be a lot of fun.
So, Joey, we are right on the cusp of the Blues season. Training camp getting going.
Good transition.
How about that?
Yeah.
I've been working on it. You know what I mean? I've been
Season
working
pro.
on it.
Season pro.
But we are right here for another season of Blues hockey, and I think that this has been an incredibly long summer. Speaking for the fans, in the way that Game 7 ended against Winnipeg last year, but we are still nonetheless incredibly excited. And one of the things that I've told the guys and have said a couple of times before, when it comes to the Blues this season and the Western Conference, why not the Blues?
I know.
Why not the Blues? The way that I look at this going into it, we should be just as good as anybody else in the West.
Yeah.
Am I crazy thinking that? 'Cause
No.
sometimes the fan brain does take over big time.
No, I don't think you're far off at all. And I'm not just saying that. I think they could easily win. Not easily. They're going to win the Central Division. I mean, that's how good I think they are going to be this year. I think that it is. I don't even think they're a sleeper team anymore. I think that, losing the way they lost last year, they were, seconds away from knocking off the President's Trophy winners. I mean, that was still a growth year for them. Now, I think we're going to look back in a year from now, 2 years, 3 years, certainly, and say that was probably the best thing that's ever happened to them. Now I'm looking at the way this team is built. I'm looking at the way these players have trained this summer. I saw Robert Thomas and Colton at the rink about a month and a half ago at 17, just the two of them on the ice, just working on saucer passing, just working on these repetitive things over and over. I mean, the work has been put in. That feeling of what they let slip away, I really do think this is going to propel them to have such an incredible year. And I think the fans are going to be grateful for what happened in Game 7 a few months ago because of the year now that they're setting themselves up for. But to answer your question, yes, I think absolutely you should be very excited about this team. And I think that they could win this division. And I say that because you look at the way they have such balance of, they have veteran players. And I look at the Cam Fowlers, who has just taken such a leadership role on the back end. I think Braden Shen's one of the best captains in the league. I know him, personally. I know his personality. I love the way he has grabbed this group after the Four Nations tournament last year and just galvanized it. So we got the veteran guys. You have this wonderful mix of players in their prime, which you guys all know with Colton and, Jordan and Bucci and now Robert Thomas, who's going to be kind of pushing closer to 100-point season here. So you have those guys in your prime. And now you have this whole other wave of young players in Broberg and Holloway and Jimmy Snuggerud. There's going to be growing pains for those guys. But you have this group of veterans and prime guys and young guys. And now we have the best goalie tandem in the league, and I think that the goalie tandem this year is going to be more important than ever because of this Olympic break, because of this condensed schedule where we're playing so many games. I was with some trainers at the rink the other day and they were just catching their breath about how long and exhausting this year is going to be. It's going to be exhausting, especially on the goaltenders. So the teams that are the Winnipeg Jets that lean on the Hellebucks, those types of teams, I think they're going to actually fall off a little bit. I think they can't lean on those top guys as much as they're going to have leaned on them in the past. So with the condensed schedule, I think the goaltender tandem is going to be as important as ever this year. So to me, that's why I have them winning the Central Division.
Joe, you were a part of some of those teams in Pittsburgh that had disappointing losses, whether it was the first round, second round, but they were teams that always felt like they were supposed to win the Stanley Cup. How much did that stick in players' crawl that offseason when you left a playoff series earlier than you thought you were supposed to?
Well, to me, it all comes back through leadership. The leadership of the disappointment, the leadership of how this is going to make us better. We lost, I think it was in 2014. It was one of the coolest playoff series I was ever a part of, where the Penguins played the Flyers. A few weeks before that is when I hit Daniel Briere.
So he took off Briere's head.
Yeah, and then it caused Tony Granato and Peter Laviolette were screaming at each other over Pierre Maguire. I mean, I've even seen that kind of line brawl situation. And that set up what was an incredible first round where there were so many suspensions and penalties. And in one game, I think in Game 5, we had 6 or 7 guys left on the bench. It was just no one left. And I remember the emotions of that one. And we ended up losing in 6 games. And, 2 days later, you kind of let the smoke settle. Everyone's disappointed. We had a great year that year, too. I think we finished first in the East. We lost in the first round. 2 days later, we're coming in to pack up all of our stuff. And to your point of the disappointment, everyone's disappointed, everyone's down. And I come into the rink and I'm just hearing pucks smack against the glass. And you're just hearing it bang, bang. Tony Granato, who was our assistant at the time, he told this same story to our youth hockey team when he met him up at Notre Dame when he was the head coach at Wisconsin. So I remember that it impacted Tony as well. And, you're hearing these pucks just clang off the glass. I'm like, who is on the ice? Maybe a youth hockey team, or is there some sort of women's thing going on in town? And you kind of turn the corner, and there's Sid, and he's in his skates and his tracksuit, and he is just firing pucks from this left dot. And I found out, weeks later that he had an opportunity in Game 6 to make an impact on that game, and he missed his shot. Oh. And that is who he is. That's the leadership. And I remember the following year, I think we ended up going all the way to the Eastern Conference Final, losing to the Bruins, but it was another great series. But it was kind of that internal drive that it led with our captain, and then everyone kind of feeds into that, right? And that's why I think leadership is just so important. For the Blues, we are so lucky to have Braden here. Jim Montgomery talked so much about this team after the Four Nations last year, the adversity they faced. And every team faces adversity, and you see the way these teams kind of go two different ways, right? Because, the old saying is, what stands in the way becomes the way. If you have the right leadership, if you have the right guys that are going to respond and go in the right direction together. We saw it in 19, and I think Braden is as good as anyone is in the league as far as what he has done with this group. He has found such a great balance of holding players accountable, but not alienating them, and being their friend, but also kind of being the dictator. And that's a hard balance. So I go back to, yes, it's disappointing. I've been disappointed there as a player. We're certainly disappointed as fans and as broadcasters. That's what happened last year. But I go back to leadership, and I think that with Jim Montgomery and Braden kind of leading this charge into this season, I think this Blues team is certainly going to respond in a very good way.
Yeah, you mentioned Monty a couple times, and Joey, I want to ask you, what does it mean to the players to know from day one of training camp that he's the guy? They know what he's all about. They know he's got the X's and O's, but he's also got the personality. Like last year, this time you go into it and you have respect for Drew Bannister, but you're just not as confident in the situation. And now, right when you arrive, you got that.
You do. And I think that for Jim, he steps into the scene, and, these players, they can sniff it out, right? They can sniff out, and this is no disrespect to any other coach that hasn't been successful, but when you come into a room, you come into the scene, the players already are going to have kind of an opinion about you. That's what made Craig Berube so great. When Craig stepped in, everyone was like, okay.
There's only one opinion you can have on Craig Berube.
Yeah, you got 1,000+ games, one of the most penalty minutes of any. He's like, you can do that. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to do what Craig did. I always talk about Chris Thorburn. Chris Thorburn, one of my favorite Blues of all time. The guy played over 800 games as a fighter. Mm-hmm. It is hard to play one game and then to do that many games as a fighter. Craig Berube, I mean, he played over 1,000 games as a fighter in one of the toughest eras, if not the toughest era in the NHL. So right away, your mind as a player is like, this dude has got my time. He's got my attention.
Yeah.
And it's no disrespect to coaches like Drew Bannister, because there's plenty of them. Look at Jared Bednar. Jared Bednar has not had a great career, and he certainly has that too. So it can work, but players they're already kind of thinking, okay, what's this guy about? Where's he coming from? How much success has he had? So I think for Jim comes in. Yes, he's got the wonderful personality. He's got so much charisma, right? But he's got a winning tradition, right? Everywhere he's gone, he's won. So I think that the players right away kind of grabbed onto that. And I think that Jim may be one of the best in the league as far as that whole balance of accountable without alienating. That is so incredibly key for the way players are nowadays. It's hard to condition and coach these young players these days. I was talking to Greg Cronin, who just recently lost his job with the Anaheim Ducks. He was my college coach. We were meeting at the Ritz last year when the Ducks were in town. That's where they were staying. And he was talking about, Trevor Zegras. He was talking about some of these young players. And he was talking about the challenge it is now to coach young players. And it was a really interesting perspective. And I said, why is it so hard to coach young players these days? And what have you found is the challenge of it all? And he said something that just kind of like has still got me thinking. He said, no one's eating as a family anymore. And I'm like, oh, no one's eating as a family anymore? He goes, yeah. He goes, to me, that's the root of the problem. No one's eating as a family anymore, because when you eat as a family, it's very old school, where you're sitting around the table and little Johnny's going to see very quickly that little Johnny's just one little piece in this big, big puzzle. Mm-hmm. So you learn these values of like, you're just one piece. But now no one eats anymore, Joe. And he's telling me this whole story. And it's actually it's a lot of wisdom in it.
Yeah.
Now everyone's going to practice and eating on their own, and anything you need, the parents take care of. You need new laces, I'll get you new laces. And it's just everyone is catering to these individuals. And then you grow up to have a very individual mindset. You kind of have more of a selfish mindset where now it's very hard to coach this next generation, and this isn't generalized. This is just, what he has found to be, the majority, but not everybody. Mm-hmm. And it really comes down to that, where it's hard to get players to grasp this idea that it's team first, because why would these kids know any different? They haven't seen team first. Okay. They haven't, because they're even the people they grew up with, it wasn't team first. It wasn't family first. It was me first. So that's what's special about Jim, is that he has found a way through his communication, through his experience, through the way he treats people, that he has got them to buy in that it is team first. And that is what turned the year around last year. That's what made the 19 team under Craig Berube turn around. That's the key. And I'm not going to sit here and say I know how to do it, but I've seen it enough. The coaches and the leadership people that can grab a team and say, how do we make this team understand that it's team first? It's a very hard thing to do. And if I knew it, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be coaching some team. But Jim has certainly got that figured out.
Well, let's take a real quick break here on the Last Minute Blues podcast. We'll be right back with more of Joey Vitale. Joey, can leadership be taught? Does somebody that can come into the locker room that maybe is not a great team player, is that something that can be learned? I would assume that it can be, but I would assume it's probably not an easy road to go for that player.
No, definitely. No, I think leadership is 100% a learned trait, and I think you learn it from having the great mentors around you and having people that can show you the way, and Keith Yandel is one of the best leaders I've been around. He just was an incredible teammate, and he learned everything from Shane Doan. I mean, Shane Doan to me is, Alex and I, we've talked a ton about Shane, and now he's working, I believe, still with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and get a chance to catch up with him a couple times a year. He was the best leader to me, because at the core of every great leader I've ever been around is just this selflessness. They, at some point in their careers, they move from self to service. They go from, I want to do it for you, and it's not about me anymore. And a Shane Doan story that I tell people this all the time. Sometimes I'll do like a leadership class at CBC for some juniors, and I always try to bring this story in because this is the best leadership story I've ever experienced with a guy I played with. We were in Boston, just finished playing the Buffalo Sabres. It was my first back-to-back with the Arizona Coyotes. I've been in the league about 4 or 5 years. Shane had been in the league at that point like 16, 17 years. He was our captain, just an incredible person. And it was my very first road trip. And, you go from Buffalo, you travel to the night, you get to the Ritz there in Boston on Beacon Hill there. And it's like maybe 2:30 in the morning. And there's only 2 elevators in that hotel. So it's kind of a backed up line there. And, the elevator's open, and there's just like a pecking order where, the veterans go on first, and then, then the mid guys, and then all of a sudden the rookies are just waiting there. And that's how it is for elevators. For fans out there who don't know, it's, the rookies typically eat last. It's just kind of the way things have always been. So we're in Boston, and I'm kind of watching and observing. I just left Pittsburgh for 4 or 5 years, and I'm seeing how this thing's going. And the elevator's open, and a couple of, Marty Hansel, Keith Yandel, they all get on the elevator, they shoot on up. And then more guys hop on. I'm watching Shane Doan just watch all these people get on the elevator. And I kind of just kept watching, and it was late. And then it turns out he's the last one on the elevator. And I didn't think much of it. And I went to bed that night, and he meets me for breakfast in the morning, and we're talking over. And I said, Shane, what was that last night? And he said, what do you mean? I said, I just noticed you weren't hopping on an elevator. It's like, listen, I just played with Sid for the last 5-6 years. I know all about superstitions. Is it like a superstition? And he goes, oh, no. The whole elevator thing, veterans go first, rookies go last. I don't know. And I was like, come on, Shane, like, God, you've been in the league. Like, Max Domi was on our team. Max Domi wasn't even born when Shane's first year in the NHL happened. That's how long he had been around. And I said, get on the doggone elevator. Like, come on, you could be some of these guys' dads. And he said something I'll never forget. He said that, getting on the elevator first, that is not for me. Like, that's for my ego, right? That's because of what I do, not who I am. And I'll never forget. I mean, he kind of stopped me in my tracks. That's for my ego. That's because of what I do. That's not who I am, right? The best leaders understand, and they can separate what they do from who they are. That's everything to me. And when players see that's an incredible thing, because how many leaders do we know, right? That they get so infatuated with, they think they are what they do, but that's not who you are. That's just something you do. And at the core of it all is that we're all human and we all should be treated with respect and dignity. And that's what Shane did so well. So he just had this way about him. Sid was no different. Sid was the same way. So to answer your question, Donnie, yeah, it's a learned trait. But to me, anything, you got to have the right mentors that are teaching you that way.
The only thing I can think of there too, and I mean, it's an incredible story. I've heard it multiple times because we've interviewed Shane Doan together and for how great he is. The only thing I'm thinking of is how is nobody taking the stairs?
Well, they're tired, man. They just played a game.
I get it, but like, do you want to wait 30 minutes for another elevator or do you want to go to your room?
Most of these hotels now, they're like the one in Chicago. It's basically, business buildings from like floor 1 to 12. So you got to take like 2 separate elevators because the hotel is actually above all these businesses.
So you have to get on one, and then when you get to the next one, you're waiting. I guess that would be a long stair flight.
And because when these guys check in, usually, Joey, you get off the bus and there's a table right inside that's got all the room keys. And if you go up the stairs, that might give another guy time to grab your key, take off upstairs, right? Beat you to the room.
Yep.
And what do they do to the rooms?
They sometimes hide in the closet. They jump out and scare you. And at 2 a.m, you don't need that. You'll be up all night.
I saw the video that Reeves did that to Shattenkirk a couple years ago. And it's like, oh, okay. Never mind. I've never done the road trip with hockey players, but you're probably right. I don't think I'd survive that.
It's the best. And then my favorite part of life now is I bring some of those pranks to the youth hockey movement. Jeremy's got still playing at the Merrimack Sharks.
Yeah, Eagles. Yep.
And the Eagles. And so now, my kids are at Kirkwood and different things. And I get to go on these road trips and I'm like, hey guys, come on. And I round them up like, let's go put on a leaner. And like, what's a leaner? I'm like, the leaner, get over here. So we fill up a trash can and we lean it on the door and we knock and then we sprint down the hall and all of a sudden they open it and whoosh, like a tidal wave in the room. And of course then, security's calling about there's a leak. There's a leak on the 6th floor ceiling and you plead the 5th, of course. But that to me is the fun part. Is now you're kind of get back in the mix and kind of teaching the youth the way, if you will, Tom.
I've never heard of a leaner, and now I'm so going to do a leaner next time.
Oh, leaner's the best.
I just love the idea of a new generation of hockey players learning pranks from a professional. You know what I mean? I just think if you're going to learn, let's learn
Joey's
from the best.
The cool dad on the trips where all the kids are like, I want to stay with Joe. I want to stay with Joe.
Yes, 100%.
I just love how he can go from a profound
deep conversation
leadership story. I mean, was that the best answer you ever heard to a leadership question? And then he switches to dump.
We just forgot to have. We stopped having fun. I don't know when we stopped having fun. My wife and I, we still pants each other. You ever pants your wife? We're big pantsers. It's fun.
Yeah, you did 5 times.
I'm not a pantser, but I will absolutely scare the bejesus out of my wife any opportunity in which that I get.
Yeah, scaring's important.
Dude, it's huge. I'm trying to think of like what else.
Do you pantser out in public?
Sometimes, yeah, it's harder in public, but not like, we're walking on the sidewalk.
Oh, okay.
Like there's no one really around, but it's kind of fun. Not in like a public setting where there's a lot of people. But yeah, we pants each other. The best is when I'm making bread. I got my hands full of dough and she'll like pants. I'm like, God. And I'm like, I'm like mad about the world. And so, yeah, I don't know.
If we learned anything from this podcast today is start pantsing your wives, ladies and gentlemen.
It's fun.
Donnie, try it tonight and I want to hear the reaction.
Yeah. I think we got to pick the right time and place for that maneuver.
No,
I'm not saying no. I'm just saying I got to figure it out. Hold on. We got to take another break.
Yeah.
More of the Last Minute Blues podcast coming here next. Yeah, I don't know that that's something in which that I'm going to do. And also, too, like, I love my wife a lot, but she's tough.
Yeah.
And, like, she has been in more, like, fights growing up than I ever was. I don't know that I want to poke that bear.
Why don't you start with, you never walk on a sidewalk, those big bushes, they're like 6, 7 feet. Yeah. Just shove her into those. Those are that is so
my dad does that too.
And you're like
starting point too versus pantsing.
Like, you're like stuck in there, like help me out. And you're like they help them out, and they're covered in needles. It's all so
fun. Love this for other people that are not my wife. I don't know. I think I might like her too much.
Fantastic.
So, all right, back to our Blues and this coming up
from
season.
pantsing.
Absolutely, we had to do something.
Yeah.
Like guys, if we could talk about. I come in here, I praise our Blues a lot. I definitely have like sort of the fan view of this thing. But Joey, can you kind of maybe talk about some areas with this team that maybe you have questions about, or hey, if there's going to be an issue, this could be where it comes from?
You know, it's maybe I'm a fourth line guy at heart, and this is why I say this, but I think they have got to figure out an identity line really quickly. I think the biggest loss, I loved Zach Bolduc, but I think their biggest loss probably was Radek Faksa.
Yeah.
Man, that one stung.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see how much that stung pretty soon.
And is it because, and I don't mean to interrupt you, because he did so many things so well.
He did so many things so well. You never saw him on the wrong side of the puck. You never saw him put his teammate in a bad spot. He hit that line was just incredible. Like, people don't realize how important that line was. Jim Montgomery said this, part of the turnaround. He made a comment like this in the spring. He said, the turnaround for me really happened when I really noticed this identity, what do they call that line? RDF or
The WTF
FKF or STW.
WTF.
Yeah, sorry, I get my letters confused. The WTF line, he recognized this line, the Walker, Toropchenko, Fox line, around Christmas time. And he actually grabbed the whole group and he said, do you see the way this line plays? Every line needs to play like this. Like they're together, they're connected, they care about the details, they care about the little things, right? Now, every line started to do that, but that was kind of the catalyst for this kind of this turning point last year, I think, was this identity line. So losing Radek Faksa is a blow, a big one, because to me, he was the guy in the middle. And he was kind of one of those quiet, unsung, Walker's out there fighting and pumping the crowd up. And I love that. I love it. Radek was kind of like doing all those little things, but so quietly. Just selfless and quietly. You didn't hear him say a word. I mean, the only time Blues fans really got excited about Radek Faksa was when he that shootout goal in like the 13th round. What was that? He kind of pulled the rabbit out of its hat and put the goalie in the corner, and everyone's like, where did that come from? But outside of that, he was never in the spotlight. But he did so many little things well. Now, can Nick Bukestad come in and can he grab that line in the same way? Is it an Oscar Sundqvist that comes in and maybe Bukestad bumps up to a third line? They're going to have to figure out some chemistry. To me, that is the biggest. I mean, there's a couple things, right? But that is the biggest thing that I want to look at in preseason and the start of this first maybe 10-game segment is, how are we going to figure out what that line looks like? Because that is such a driving force of every team. Every team, let's not call it the fourth line. Let's just call it that utility, identity line, the tone-setting line. Every team needs that tone-setting line, and the Blues had it last year. It helped them turn things around. It was a catalyst in a great way. They lost a big piece of that kind of trio. So who's going to come in and fill that spot?
So big season for you and your broadcast partner, Chris Kerber. You gentlemen will be handling both the television and radio duties, sir.
Yeah.
What do you do to prepare for that job?
I have no idea. If you know, you will let me know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I do not know. I've been talking to Curbs a ton. I say that jokingly. We've been having a lot of meetings and conversations. Alex and I have been talking about things, and we're trying to strike this balance between working with Hubbard and working with FanDuel and talking to the Blues. It's a bunch of different people all coming to the table. I know one thing. I got a wonderful team, Timmy Paps and Phil and Jay, Dave and Curbs, and just wonderful people around me. And that's who I lean on. I lean on those mentors and those voices. It's going to be a learning curve for sure. There's going to be a lot of opinions. I think Curbs and I talked a lot about that as well. There's going to be a lot of criticisms probably out of the gates, because I'm like everyone. I loved John Kelly. I loved what he brought. I loved him as a human. I loved him as a broadcaster. And change is hard and change is different. And I know that it's going to take a while for people to get used to some change. So there's going to be a lot of opinions, and that's fair and that's warranted. And I think that there's going to be a lot of, hey, do you ever try this? Or maybe we should try that. And it's going to be just a lot of filtering where, okay, let's take this. This is good information. We should use this. Let's work on that. Or, hey, I appreciate this, but that's not really who I am either, and then it took me a little while to really find my voice when I was in the radio side of things. And so I'm constantly just going to be striking that balance of, okay, yes, I hear you. I appreciate that. That's something to think about. I need to make a switch here versus, you know what? I hear you. I appreciate you. But that's just not me, and I got to be true to myself there too. So I don't really know exactly just yet. I think it's one of those things where just you're a couple, you're about to have your first baby. We all have kids. Hey, you ready for this? You ready for that? It's like, yeah, I think so. And all of a sudden you read that book, what to expect when you're expecting. Yeah. Everyone's read that stupid book, and man, throw that in the fire because you just don't, it's like all of a sudden it's here. Like, okay. And then you just got to figure it out. So I think it's going to be a lot of that. It's going to be like, let's just jump in. Let's do it. Let's figure it out. We're gonna watch a lot of the games. We're gonna just listen to a lot of the games. How does it sound without a visual? How does it sound with the visual? Because listen, we have to take care of the TV audience. That's the main audience. But we can't alienate our radio listeners as well, because that's super important as well. So we're gonna strike the balance. It's gonna be a lot of communication. It's gonna be a collaborative effort, and we're looking forward to it.
I think one thing that would really help you, just some advice here, because I've done that job. No, I haven't.
Big TV guy, JR.
Yeah, a catchphrase. Can we think of a catchphrase?
It's funny, like with Panger, it was the holy jumping, and people like, you need a catchphrase. And I've never wanted to force anything. Nothing organic has come yet. And it's been 8-9 years. Yeah. I have little quirky things I say, but I don't know if I have that catchphrase. I don't think you need a catchphrase. Rush.
Joey doesn't need a catchphrase. Joey's like a catchphrase himself, because Joey to me is known as the guy that's going to go on some type of tangent, but always gets it back to hockey. Yeah. Like the entire time, like I will never forget the best Joe Vitale story was his first year. We were on KMOX, and like people know, KMOX, old school radio station. Joey is talking about the Blues, and this is at the time they're bad. This was in December. Mm-hmm. And in the middle of just a quiet period, Joe's like, you ever know where nipples come from, Curbs? Went on a 5-minute tangent and then got back into hockey talking about an individual player. And I'm like, this is radio gold right here.
This is a professional right here.
This guy knows what the hell he is talking about. Yeah. I mean, all of us have been asked probably multiple times, like, what is this going to look like? The one thing that I've been telling people is like, I hope they don't change a thing. Because to me, what makes a broadcast great is entertainment, right? You want to be entertained while you're watching the game. And I think what Curbs and Joey do so well, specifically you, Joe, is, man, you bring the player side, you bring the actual breakdown of the game, but it's not just the X's and O's where you're just talking hockey the entire time. Mm-hmm. You get into entertainment, and then you get back into hockey. Now, there's going to have to be a happy medium because people can see it versus not seeing it on the radio. But, man, I just, like, you and Curbs have that dual thing to where it's just bouncing off of each other, pure entertainment, but then pure hockey when it rolls with it.
Curve has got a tough job. Sometimes he's got to reel me back in or just like cut off my mic. But
then sometimes you have to reel Curbs back in.
No, that's true. No, I appreciate you saying that. I think at the end of the day, I always try to check in with, it is a kid's game at a king's ransom. But let's not take the king's ransom side, and let's not over exaggerate here. We're talking about a kid's game here. Like, there has to be a balance here. Like, life is not terrible. Life is not horrible because the Blues have lost 3 in a row. Let's try to shed some light. Let's make sure we're always having fun. Yeah. And remember, at the end of the day, like, it's just a game where individuals are pushing around a piece of rubber on a sheet of ice. Yeah.
And speaking of a kid's game, I don't know if you guys know the story behind his Stanley Cup Game 7. Curbs announces that the Blues have won the Stanley Cup, and Joey comes in with his commentary, and there's a kid's book that was behind what you said that night. Tell that one.
Oh, yeah. So that was, I think you did a cool article on that, on where the call came from. And, I remember before Game 7, I checked back in on what Joe Buck had told me when I got the job in August of 2018. Again, my dad always told me, whenever you want to be good at something, find a mentor, find someone that you like and admire, and just learn. So I, reached out to Joe Micheletti. We met for breakfast. I talked to Joe Buck. We met at Starbucks there in Frontenac. Shout out Starbucks. Hopefully that's a sponsor. And he told me, he goes, Joe, Joe Buck's awesome. He's like, Joe, I don't know if you're ever going to, prepare for this in your very first year, but I'm going to give you the advice anyway. If you ever are preparing for a big game, don't ever over prepare. And I'm listening to him, and he's telling me the story about Mark McGuire hitting his 62nd home run. Were you guys in the building at the Old Bush for that?
I was not in the building.
I was 9, so I was watching.
You were probably watching
Yo Gabba Gabba.
Yeah, I was watching Yo Gabba Gabba.
You were in Gabba Gabba. I was at the Old Bush when he hit that. And you remember? And he's like, Joe, you remember? I was ready. I was getting excited for the game, and my call. I had a couple things in mind on what I wanted to say. Like, there was Mark into the history books. I had some things. And he's telling me this whole story. And then the home run happens. And if you remember the home run, it was like a line drive down that field.
It barely creeped over the wall.
Barely, right? And he couldn't tell. And so then it's like, it's up, it's a tight or whatever. And he's going, and the fans going crazy. And then it goes over. And then Joe Buck comes in and says, oh, don't forget to touch first, Mark. Yeah. And that became a legendary call. And it became legendary because it was just real. Like, and his advice was like, don't over prepare. Like, just be authentic, you know, because you never know. The authenticity is
Nailed it.
the cool part. Right, you nailed it. That's the cool part of the call. So I remember we were preparing for Game 7, and I just had a sheet of paper. I'm just like, screw it. Like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to like just see what the heck happens. And Curbs does his call, and then I kind of chime in and I just talk about the players coming on the ice, all the black aces and the crowd and this. I'm just saying what I see. When in doubt, just tell the people what you see. So I was just saying that. And what did I
book,
say?
yeah,
The miracle. What
daughter,
that's the Al Michaels. I said this is real life. Like, this is real life. And I just had finished a book 2 nights before we went to Boston. And it was this book about heaven is for real, or heaven's real life. And I'm talking these working with my kids and reading the book. And I don't know why that thought just came across to me. And it's like, this is real. This is real life. You know what I mean? And of course, now the call is pretty cool. And I think people appreciate it. But it just came from a kid's book. And it just was just like, I don't know. I just said whatever the heck was on my mind. And sometimes it puts you in a dangerous spot, Donnie. But sometimes you, what's the old expression? The blind hermit crab finds a nut or something.
I don't know if that's
just a squirrel. It's a squirrel.
That's like 3 expressions put
It
together.
was the blind hermit crab finds the nut, guys.
Yeah.
That's what the saying is.
Every now and then.
And this is going to be on TV now.
That should be the saying for the 2025 season.
Yeah.
2025,
You just found
26
your
season.
catchphrase.
There we go.
When they win the division.
Yeah.
All right. Well, gentlemen, I think that we are going to bring this to a fine close. Joey, thank you so much for your time, man.
Thanks, Joey.
Thank you,
We
guys.
appreciate it. If you get time throughout the course of the season and can pop in and join us, you know we would love to have you.
Let's do it. Yeah, no, I appreciate what you guys are doing. You guys got a heck of an awesome show, and I know the fans appreciate it. I appreciate it, and keep doing your thing. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joey. Last Minute Blues podcast brought to you by Blue Note Roofing, roofing, siding, gutters, your St. Louis roofing experts, BlueNoteRoofingSTL.com for a free inspection. For Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic, we've got our friend Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN. I'm Donnie Fandango. Thank you as always for listening and watching the Last Minute Blues podcast. Let's go Blues.
The Last Minute Blues podcast. Hear more at 1057thepoint.com.